Donald Trump is using the death of Charlie Kirk as an opportunity to blame progressives and Democrats for all political violence in this country. He's trying to capitalize on the death of Charlie Kirk to quash people's rights to the First Amendment and to try to shut down the left and institutions that he sees as too progressive, something that I think Charlie Kirk wouldn't stand for. I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck. This is Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. If you like this content, hit that subscribe button so you keep up to date with these videos. Share your comments with us. Brian, how do we start with this?
Well, I think the first thing we start with is what actually has Trump been saying since the Charlie Kirk killings, which are fairly outrageous. But the gist of it is it's the left is responsible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis, comparing it to radical left political violence. He's using that term over and over again. And then when confronted with the issue on Fox and Friends, he actually came out and said that while the left is responsible for all political violence, the only violence that occurs on the right is when it occurs to protect themselves against crime. That's the only time that violence is used on the right, is when it's to protect themselves against crime. Now, these are clearly wrong. I don't even know what other word to use for it. They're wrong. They're made up. He's an opportunist. We know Donald Trump's an opportunist, but it's not now. It's carried on to others. And others in the conservative media world are repeating these same, bald-faced lies.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's truly trying to capitalize on the death of someone that vehemently stood for the First Amendment, that dedicated basically at this point his life to protecting the First Amendment. And I find it kind of sad and ironic and pathetic for Trump to do this. I mean,
his people then pick up on it, right?
They pick up on it. They fall in line. Of course,
here's
they do.
A couple. Alex Jones, he's
a reasonable guy.
Yeah, no, that wasn't what I was going to say. He said, "This is war. This is war. This is war," blaming the left for inciting violence. He tied it to a pattern of left-wing attacks on conservatives. Christopher Rufo, who's a conservative activist, said that radical left was responsible and called for action. Quote, "The radical left was responsible for the shooting, and the government should infiltrate, disrupt, and arrest and incarcerate all those responsible for the chaos." Stephen Miller, we all know Stephen Miller. He said the Democratic Party is a domestic extremist organization, and it contributed to Kirk's killing. And ultimately, circling back to Trump, he's blaming George Soros, Sean.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they need a villain, right? They need to vilify someone. They love him. He's like their Satan. George Soros is funding the left, and he's funding progressives and progressive movements and progressive speech. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, look, my take on this is that this was a tragic event. It's not right for someone's life to be taken. Charlie Kirk had, very strong viewpoints that I think you and I and many on the left would disagree with. But one thing I wholeheartedly agree with is that, and I think any Democrat agrees with and should agree with, is that he had an absolute right to express those views, and he had a right to express them in the manner in which he expressed it. He gave other, he debated people. It was engaging debates often. It was, but free speech and action. And to now take that and say, we need to make an effort, and almost violently, Trump is now advocating for violence. We need to now shut down progressive speech because it contributed to his death. I mean, that's completely antithetical. It's directly contrary to everything that Charlie Kirk stood for.
Well, I have more to say about that in a minute, but before we get to that, I wanted just to go through a list that I've compiled of violence directed at the left and then violence directed at the right, because there's both types of violence, and it's terrible, and this is an awful time. I mean, I've lost sleep over this. January 8th, 2011. The shooting of Gabby Giffords. October 8th, 2020, foiled kidnapping plot against Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. And then, of course, January 6th. I mean, need I say more than January 6th? February 14th, 2022, an attempted shooting of a candidate for a mayor in Louisville, Democrat. February 2022, shooting at a Black Lives Matter protest in Portland, where a far-right individual shot 5 protesters, killing 1. May of 2022, Buffalo market shooting killed 10 black shoppers in a racially motivated attack by a white supremacist. The attack on Paul Pelosi in October of 2022. December 2023 to 2024, shooting at the home of New Mexico Democratic lawmakers by a failed Republican candidate. October 6, 2024, gunfire at Kamala Harris's campaign office in Tempe, Arizona. The April 13th, 2025, just this year, arson at Governor Josh Shapiro's residence in Pennsylvania. And then the killings in June of a Minnesota Democratic lawmaker and her husband, and the shooting of another Democratic lawmaker and his wife. And then on August 8th, the shooting near the CDC headquarters by someone who was motivated by COVID-19 vaccine grievances, which is clearly on the right. Now, there's plenty on the left that have been perpetrated on the right. The right's been victims. And I want to give some time to that as well. Not as many, but there have been some. The shooting at a Republican congressional baseball practice in 2017, the shooting of Anthony King in Ohio, who was a Trump supporter, killed his neighbor, believing that his neighbor was a Democrat, but he was actually a Republican. Killing of a Las Vegas journalist by a Democratic official in September of 2022. In this year, arson at New Mexico Republican headquarters. Then the assassination attempt of Trump in June of 2024. The assassination attempt in September of 2024 of Trump. None of these are right. I mean, the attack on Tesla properties with Molotov cocktails, the shooting of the Israeli embassy staffers in May, the June attack on pro-Israel demonstration in Boulder, Colorado, and finally the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So thank you for letting me have the time to go through that. But I think it was important, Shant, to go through that whole list.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. And I don't think two wrongs make a right, right? It doesn't justify what happened to Charlie Kirk. It wouldn't justify if something similar happened to a figure who was a proponent of progressive policies. None of this is justified, but I think we need to set the record straight. You know, facts are facts, that this isn't something that's perpetrated by folks on the left or because of left-leaning policies or because of progressive politics or democratic politics. It's not true. What Trump is saying is that, this is only because political violence is perpetrated by people on the left. That's not true. It's objectively false. We're not talking here about whether someone agrees with Charlie Kirk, whether someone agrees with left politics, right politics. Either side, he's just objectively wrong. He's lying to the American public when he says these things, and I think it's shameful. It's a disgraceful position for him to take. It's disgraceful for him to say something like this in the wake of such a sad, serious event. I mean, it's just. But does any of it surprise you? Does his position surprise you? You know,
no. And there's more.
Miller's blind allegiance to this stuff surprise you? Alex Jones. I mean, I guess he's in great company. Crazy people like Alex Jones echoing your sentiments.
And there's more, Sean. I mean, just today, just a couple hours before we recorded this, the Vice President of the United States hosted the Charlie Kirk show from the White House, from his office in the White House. And he used the show to talk about their plans to crack down on what they called Democratic left non-governmental organizations. And then Stephen Miller, who I don't know what we could say about Stephen Miller that we haven't already said.
The Prince of Darkness.
He was going to be, the Prince of Darkness. He said he was going to be working with federal agencies to root out what he referred to as the domestic terror movement. Quote, with God as my witness, we're going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, eliminate, and destroy this network and make America safe again for the American people. And then specifically talked about the far left, and that the far left was fomenting political violence in America. The radical left is responsible for much of the political violence. They want to investigate organizations that are funding this. I mean, this is a clear and unambiguous attack on the First Amendment and on free speech. Yeah. And while we know from law school, and anyone who has ever read anything about the law knows that you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, similarly, you can't quash speech just because you don't agree with it.
Yeah. No matter doesn't matter. Political speech, hate speech doesn't matter. You can't quash it. And I'm not saying hate speech is okay. I'm just saying folks have the right to express it. A lot of what Charlie Kirk was saying, some people would say was hate speech, but I vehemently, agree that he had the right to say that. That's something he had the right to say, and to now use this person's death specifically as an excuse for crushing people's right to free speech, to take away people's right to free speech, is just so pathetic. It's so sad. I mean, it's capitalizing on someone's death, and it's just it's an affront to the Constitution. This is a right that we have, a right that everyone in this country is born with, it's just so sad. I went back and kind of looked at what the leaders said after the assassination of somebody, other famous people, political figures too. After MLK's death, Lyndon Johnson said, "We've suffered a grievous loss. I ask every citizen to reject the blind violence that has struck Dr. King, who lived by nonviolence." Look at that. There's no political leaning there. There's no, promise to crush and eliminate certain people that have a certain viewpoint. I mean, that's the appropriate response. I think it's just ridiculous to come back and try to turn this into a free speech issue and to try to crush free speech.
Trump had a moment. My final thought on this, Shant. Trump had a moment here where he could have come out and said, like the rest of us, this is not acceptable. This is awful. And like Governor Cox did in Utah, came right out and said, we need to tone this down. We need to start putting away social media. I mean, if you look on social media today, what's out there, the crazy stuff that's coming out is insane. And instead, Trump pivoted exactly the opposite direction, which is completely predictable for Donald Trump. It's exactly what you would expect he would do, is come out and say something absolutely crazy like this to try to take advantage of a very, very sad situation. So that's my last thought. You get the final word, Sean, as usual.
Yeah, no, I think I've said enough about this. It's sad to see him take advantage of this. It's ironic that he's using the death of this person specifically as a tool to crush free speech. And, we'll see the challenges that he'll try to bring. And I still believe in our Constitution. I still believe in the right to free speech. And I don't think the courts will let it stand, whatever he's going to try to do. And we'll keep covering that. And that's the best we can do here. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck. This has been Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. If you like this content, hit that subscribe button, share your thoughts. We know this is a serious issue. We love hearing from you, and we'll see you on the next one.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.